once it goes live. Let's see. I know, sorry, V. Let me just mute this mic. Once it goes live, okay, it's live now. All right. Okay. All right, we're ready. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, aloha and welcome to Matrix Biomechanics Live. I'm your host, Micah Skye. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful broadcast Monday. Oh, in the crux of intensity. Thanks for joining us on People for People Radio. We're broadcasting live on YouTube Live as well. And we're going to be going through a shorter segment of the first segment of the show on YouTube Live, and then I'll be recording and then editing the rest of the show with really clean visuals, and you can listen to the rest of the broadcast before that on People for People Radio, trying to keep the YouTube live videos a little shorter. We will address the foundational reason of why that is in the broadcast, generally just the overall attention span of your average human with our technological retardation makes it so that 2-hour video for a lot of people, they don't even try starting it. So I found some of the deepest pieces of information in 2-hour interviews with very educated and informed individuals. So I love those kinds of things. I watch them sometimes 2 and 3 times. I have a lot of colleagues that do the same, but for a lot of people, we're not able to get information to them, and that's our overall goal. So we're going to go through kind of a general spectrum, give you some exploration into some applicable things like breath work and salt circles, and address kind of briefly, the state on the timeline that we're in. And then we'll continue deeper into the bigger timeline, because we're going to be looking at cosmic forecast. I just did a lecture actually at an event, health summit yesterday. And I'm going to be going into that because there really is just kind of one message. I feel like up until this great event that's 6,000 years in the coming takes place on December 21st of this year is the beginning of it, when it begins. And the road to get there is going to be, quite a season finale for this year. So it's kind of becomes like, what is the overall most important goal, which would be to bring awareness to this cosmic event, to bring awareness to the true divinity of who and what we are, and to give tangible, real, applicable, sovereign techniques that you can do in your own home, in the privacy of your own space, to prepare your body and your mind and your soul for getting the most out of this cosmic event that's going to be taking place, that each one of us will experience in our own way. But the more prepared you are, the more you will get out of this experience. And there's going to be some shocking events leading up to it. So as if this wasn't going to be as powerful of a journey as possible, there's going to be a lot of things transpiring. Some of the first of those events we're even going to just touch base on, because we're right at the 2 minutes to midnight for that, which is the election for the next presidency of the United States of America. And one of the most important elections, I would say, in our history, and that will make a lot more sense to everybody down the road. But we are in biblical times, and the first piece I'm actually going to show is from Millennial Millie, and much respect to the work she's done as well. And it's basically a video showing Zoom conversations with the Antifa and BLM groups about really trying to lay siege on the White House from election day on, infiltrate buildings, you name it. I mean, this is what they've been organizing to do. they even down to stating they want to be in control, creating the crisis, but be in control of the crisis. So it's very real. And I'm going to play this first and then go into one of the latest intel drops, and we'll transition from there. So here we go.
Inside the Sunrise Movement was able to obtain exclusive video footage inside Zoom chats where Shutdown DC, BLM, and other leftist organizations are coordinating a multi-level coup action exercise utilizing insider help from Democrat Party members as well as federal employees and intelligence contractors. I'm a management and programs analyst.
So these are different people that are involved in it. I hope everyone can hear the audio. I guess I should check and see real quick if you guys can hear the audio. Maybe one of my producers can give me a heads up that you guys are hearing even a little bit of the audio for this. Let's see. What did that say? Okay, cool. So, and for those on the radio, it's showing the individuals, their pictures or their video talking about their roles and positions, just so you guys know. And even though you can't see the video, the audio for it's good. So I'm glad you can hear it. I'm going to scoot the mic a little closer so you make sure you can get it.
Security community. I spent 3.5 years as a contractor at DHS HQ.
If you read the mainstream press, like they all have Signal accounts, text them, leak everything you can. The journalists I've dealt with have been super ethical in ways to shield me, be the source of the leaks.
Groups on the outside being able to show solidarity with federal workers,
Making sure that we're naming what is happening as a coup.
Totally agreed. In the Shutdown DC conversations that I've been having, that's not on the federal side. We also are often call it a coup.
They plan to shut down Washington, D.C. and other major U.S. cities starting November 4th until Inauguration Day.
Do we have any plans for how to respond if there's a coup?
Come to BLM Plaza anytime after 4 p.m. on election night. On the 5th, we're going to shut down the White House.
Map the White House and know every access point so we knew we could blockade it.
On the 6th, we're going to shut down larger parts of Washington, D.C.
We've been working on a target map and a framework for scenario. So where are all the police stations? Where are all the key government buildings? Who are the Trump boosters?
Members of Congress, they're coming in. We're going to meet them at the airports or at Union Station and send them back to where they came from until we deal with the situation that we're in.
We are going to be in a crisis, but we want it to be one that we are creating. Whoever's got the guns can win. Let's take over the buildings. If there are people that are willing to do that, we should support them. Get ready to shut your city down on the 4th or the 5th.
Regardless of who wins, the left plans to take over.
Okay, so I hope you all got to hear that audio clearly. So that was fun. Yeah, that is real and organized and prepared. And so I get intel from a lot of sources, and on some level I'm building and earning trust. So the more intel I learn that's more relevant that I keep to myself and speak generally about things, the more channels that open up for me, I've noticed. So, and fellow researchers and people speaking, doing videos, bringing information out, same thing. So there are several timelines coming up. 10 days of darkness, which orchestrated through this strategy and plan, there is a spiritual undertone and cognition or engineering to this entire process. And 10 days of darkness will be so much more than you realize by cutting the feed of information to everybody. That 10 days of darkness is going to be something that is necessary for the brain on a resetting. And we've had a gradual shutting down, so to speak, forcing of self-isolation and whatnot. Now, this was initially done as a ritual to indoctrinate us all into the final stages of a 20-year plan to fully take control of one of the only countries that is the only country that's a beacon for freedom. So, but now there is something else. There is a operation that's been at work for a very long time. I've been studying this for, again, close to 20 years and only heard in the background vaguely 7 years ago about this after researching everything and dissecting and being a part of the 9/11 movement of underground news radio networks with Oracle Broadcasting close to 10 years ago. My show was more the esoteric and exposing a lot of those aspects of it. But besides learning about the so-called deep state, Luciferian subculture, if you will, we always were just what is going to happen with this. And so there was talk and intel of an operation inwardly. Obviously, I believe, a couple of years ago, 2017, even 2016, the initial public drops started to get initiated, which actually reflects an older strategy by another president who actually saved this country's republic. And that was Lincoln, who came into office, and you had, I believe, 7 states had already seceded and withdrawn. And he actually enlisted 75,000 civilians along with the military and focused on isolating where the insurgent armies were. He didn't focus on where their headquarters were. He focused on the armies themselves, cutting the ports and their railroad transport for supplies, their supply chains, and very strategically worked within using also the emancipation to really successfully save the republic. And you're looking at a more contemporary adaptation of that. And these civilians, now I'm not talking about ex-military who's been called back in through these back channels and has been working in this operation over the years that it's been underway. I'm talking about just the civilian side, which to me wouldn't be with muskets and whatnot packing their muskets. It's the digital warriors. It's the people that are sharing information, because we have a different aspect to this specific saving of the republic, if you will. And that is the deeply indoctrinated and brainwashed masses to news and information outlets that they have built intergenerational relationships with, news networks, newspaper companies. And so that deep indoctrination to where you find your information from, again, they've even they've split off the news networks to even have a bipartisan aspect where someone would think that they actually have a more objective perspective because they watch both news networks that appear to be speaking in light of either party, which is also BS, and specifically all controlled by the same smaller group of subsidiaries of companies, of controllers that we could count on our hand, that control all the networks and all the media. So the digital warrior side is a necessity to awaken the mentality of the people, which still have to be in alignment with everything that's going on, because otherwise you have a deeply indoctrinated populace that actually would maybe go up against and fight against you trying to save the very freedom, that because they're so confused and misdirected to the point where they're actually taking action, assembling and preparing to siege on the White House, so to speak, despite whoever wins. So all of this is obviously, this intel is obviously, again, they have everything. The D-class and the NSA being an outlet for information in this carrying out of this strategy has been imperative and foundational. So I'm going to now, transition to this drop here. This is an anonymous drop, and I'm just going to read out, again, I have a lot of people I work with that are ex-military They have a certain dialogue with which they speak and write in. One of my best friends happens to be one. So obviously ex-military who posted this. My fellow Americans, of course, over the next several days, you will undoubtedly realize that we are taking back our great country, the land of the free, from the evil tyrants that wish to do us harm and destroy the last remaining refuge of shining light. On the President of the United States order, we have initiated certain fail-safes that shall safeguard the public from the primary fallout, which is slated to occur 11/3 upon the arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta. Actionable 11/4, confirmation to the public of what is occurring will then be revealed and will not openly be accepted. Public riots are being organized in serious numbers in an effort to prevent the arrest and capture of more senior public officials. On POTUS order, a state of emergency military control will be put into action and special ops carried out. False leaks have been made to retain several within confines of the United States to prevent extradition and special operator necessity. Rest assured, the safety and well-being of every man, woman, and child of this country is being exhausted in full. However, the atmosphere within the country will unfortunately be divided, as so many have fallen for the corrupt and evil narrative that has long been broadcast. Again, that they've built intergenerational relationships of trust with and factoring it into what is real. So you're threatening the reality. It's not just about telling them that they're news sources. So we will be initiating the emergency broadcasting system, EMS, which has already been beta tested to all of our phones during this time, in an effort to provide a direct messaging to all citizens. That will also be for information. It will also be for documentation, for people to see for themselves. Organizations and or people that wish to do us harm during this time will be met with swift fury. Certain laws have been pre-lifted to provide our great military the necessary authority to handle and conduct these operations at home and abroad. And so, again, other intel is that this has been staged in other countries, and also as part of this process and plan, that other countries have all been orchestrated to be put in place and ready for this as well. So you have, Washington boarded up right now. It's a very interesting time, isn't it, to be alive? And at the same time, there are greater things on the horizon that we don't understand, and it's been systematically done in that way to disorient and keep us from being awake and aware for greater events that take place in this realm, this world we live in. And again, this has all been, they have been preparing to keep us ignorant over hundreds of years, but over the last 100 years specifically, to be disconnected and disillusioned, to not be aware of great events coming, and to be in a toxic, lower frequency state, which would result in what actually would happen for them. As energy goes higher, it becomes more uncomfortable and almost tormenting. Now, we can get into, and we will later, the physiological side of why your body would feel all of a sudden really like it's on fire or tormented. Is in your chemical memory that you accumulate over your life, that's not supposed to accumulate over your life. You are supposed to actually release it as you go. And when I say release it as you go, you're supposed to be moving this chemical memory, the stress, the trauma that accumulates, moving it through the body, flushing it out. So this is one of the greatest enslavements, just to understand how deeply retarded we have been controlled and handicapped, so to speak, for our human experience to just be human, and not what that word really is in its full entirety, human being, to move towards the being side. So when we accumulate this stress and this trauma, that chemical memory has a lower frequency, because everything physical has a vibrational aspect to it. And so that lower frequency chemical residue affects your body's vibration. And if the energy and the light and the vibration is going higher, and you're carrying a bunch of lower frequency memory that's physically acidic, so it's affecting the body's neural capacity anyways, And if you've been deeply indoctrinated, trained, handicapped, but trained to only operate from the left side of your brain, which is a limited neural capacity, limited neural circuitry, which is why we fritz out and freak out. And when we get stressed is because we're coming from the left brain and the circuitry hits its maximum capacity and it fritzes. And the right brain, which is receptivity, creativity, passivity, sensitivity, the parasympathetic nervous system, tuning into higher body frequencies. This side is the side where the greatest potentiality for us living towards the being or the divine side of our existence is. And we have been deeply indoctrinated, conditioned through institutions and through institutionalized education to come from the left brain. And that left brain is the handicap, it's the limited side, it's the logic, it's the reason, it's the doubt, it's the fear. It is the lower mental mind. And not only have we been taught to operate and function in it, but we've been taught to mentally intellectualize, analyze navigational choices for our lives, which should always be done by intuition, by the guttural guidance, by the higher authority that isn't the mental mind to guide navigational choices. I'll give you an example that's very simplified. Your friend invites you to a birthday party, but something's off about it energetically. You're not supposed to be there because there's going to be something chaotic that happens. Your stomach tenses up when they talk about it, but then your brain tells you, this is our friend, we should go to this party, you know, it's fine, we'll maybe meet people, and you know, we don't want to disappoint our friend, so we convince ourselves mentally to go. And then there's like a big fight, and the fight actually spills over and knocks you over, and it was a chaotic evening where and you reflect, whoa, I felt off about this, but I didn't listen because my mind got the best, because the mind is trained to do that. Okay, so here's our handicaps. So we've been conditioned into the left brain. We haven't learned all the divine basic functions of what it is to be human, and let's go through them: walking, sitting, running, pooping, reproduction, sexuality, digestion or diet or food, or how the food, the demethylation process of food, how the body's biochemistry works. These are, and then of course, spiritual practices that are scientifically proven to have an engineering that activates the body's higher operation systems to turn the body on in an optimal way, activate each cell, which is a battery, because you have the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Nucleus is acidic, cytoplasm is alkaline, separated by a membrane wall. That is a recipe for a battery. You can turn your batteries on, they charge up, and they boost functionality. So you know, the divine practice. We haven't been shown any of this. We should have been shown this hundreds of generations ago to prepare for what is coming, so that our body, has been in baptism with the water, cleansed. Our mind is baptized with the fire through the breath. And we have gone through these sacred baptisms and prepared for what we can all do every year. But this specific year, this specific event is like times 1,000 in terms of the energies you can tap into and the activations that can come about. And I say every year because these sciences in their divinity of engineering are based off syncing your electromagnetic energy with the electromagnetic orb that we all get life from, the sun. And when it goes to its lowest point and floats for 3 days, doing these practices that activate the sun energy in that floating dormant state before it rises up, stimulating the rise of these energies with the sun as it rises, syncs your energy with it and creates this profound physiological process where you activate the electromagnetic energy up your spine. That electromagnetic energy goes all the way up the spine. It arcs the capstone at the atlas, the top of the cerebral column. Okay, and I will I'll get a little chart going for show you. So here we go. Here's a beautiful chart that breaks down some aspects of it. And so let's see if I'm on share right now. I'm not. share it for you guys. Share screen. Here we go. There it is. All right. So this magical diagram that both shows you physiological aspects of the organs and the physiological, neurochemical, bioelectric, electromagnetic, as well as the energetic side, and then the anatomical side with the actual structure of the mechanism with this brain, this magical brain, where we activate through the right hemisphere, through the third and fourth ventricle of the brain. We stimulate the pineal gland to release a sacred secretion. And then we activate the pituitary to release a sacred secretion. And they are designed to combine together and produce a sacred colostrum that actually regenerates the entire body's cells in every 11 months if you sync it properly. Now, otherwise, it's every 7 years. But let's really look into what does it mean to regenerate your cells every 11 months. That is a recipe to live immortal, or as long as you need to reach a higher awakened state. If we don't do this, then the body will operate at a more limited capacity, a more animalistic capacity, and it will do as the best that it can until it starts wearing down at hopefully 60, 70, 80, because the parts aren't being regenerated. And naturally regenerating the cells every 7 years gives the degeneration process a jump. And that is why we have our aging process. That is why we have this, that everyone is deeply indoctrinated to as well. Because if your mind accepts, oh, this is what happens, I just get older, and as you go through your ages, you believe, okay, I'm getting older and this is happening next. And then as you're not taking care of yourself, of course, the body's doing its best to try to regenerate, but of course, things are wearing and tearing. And so then that justifies the mind to mentally continue this delusion of limitation of a finite mortal self. And that is how deeply we have been deceived, is that is not the case. The pineal gland, Joseph's secrets, the milk, the pituitary, Mary's secrets, the honey, both from the same source, the colostrum at the base, okay, of the skull, base of the occiput, all right. The sacred oil returns after the crossing, the crucifixion. It enters the cerebellum, the Golgotha, the place of the skull. The fluid Christ is refined 1,000 times fold. The two sacred oils travel down into the solar plexus via the semi-lunar ganglion pneumogastric nerve. The psychophysical germ, the fruit of the life, the seed of life, is born in the solar plexus, the manger. Okay, because the entire Bible is an allegorical story of this sacred physiological process to become Christed, which Jesus talks about, the ability for us all that he paved the way. So I do believe very much, some of my colleagues believe, that he didn't exist and it was all an allegorical, metaphorical diagram for doing this, becoming Christed. But I actually, in my research, especially through going into the research in India, in the archives, there was a man who came, a foreigner, and I do believe that it was Christ who came and trained and learned these ancient sciences, and then came back and activated his body to this true embodied potential. So this tree of the seed, the Ida, the red, the Bengali, the blue, the two nerve fluids, where at the crossing of the medulla oblongata, the crucifixion takes place, where it rests for 2.5 days. So this is an entire physiological process that is the 3-day process. So you're supposed to start doing these techniques and activate them with these Kriya practices, and the Kriya practices only set up the nervous system to go into parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is where your deeper processes take place. All the processes that you're seeing in this diagram, all of these processes, they are through the parasympathetic. So, I mean, there's a lot to this. Think about it. Look at these two sacred oils. They travel down into the solar plexus via the semilunar ganglion pneumogastric nerve. All right. This is at first you might think, am I supposed to do this? Like, am I supposed to carry out this? This seems really complicated. No, you're not. because we talk about it a lot on Matrix Biomechanics and in our channel, the inner physician, the I physician, for those, you know, that understand through technological reference more, the I physician is an app. It is an app that heals and activates and is a brilliant physician inside of you that has a full diagnostic and awareness of all processes in the body, including this sacred anointing process. So really, you just have to activate and stimulate the pulsation of this energy through practicing the body's movement of pulling the prana up through the exercises. And then through the exercises, the body settles into a really deep theta state, a parasympathetic state. And it's in that parasympathetic state where you're meditating after the kriyas that the body carries out on its own, intellectually, intelligently, this process. It does the work, but you have to stimulate it to turn on and do this. So that's your role as the conscious individual, which actually should not be as intimidating as this chemical process that we just kind of briefly went through. So why the yogic sciences? Well, we are going to get into the aspect of the macro cosmic event and how important it is by looking outside of our world, our realm that we know, into extraterrestrial, extra terrain, extra space, outer space, and having a different understanding of it. And in order to do that, our overall goal should be, where are we really? What, and are there other places, other worlds like this? But what is the structure like? Is it really what they've told us? How did we get to where we are? There's so many mysteries of ancient civilizations that aren't adding up, like the pyramids being dated far before the existence of Egypt, because they came along them after the great civilization in the first epoch or age, which we're going to dive into. Time increments, as all epochs are. So think of it as larger subdivisions of time. When this larger epoch completed, there was great changes and a great destruction that came in the apocalypse, or the transition of the golden age to the iron age, which was 3,000 years ago. So if 6,000 is when we in this realm completed its first 24,000 year epoch, we're 6,000 years past that. So we're into another epoch in this realm, post the great pole shift and changes that happened 6,000 years ago. And now remember, that was the closing of a 24,000 year first cosmic day in this realm. And every realm or world created operates on a cycle, like a clock, which you can see right here. Our entire process is a cycle: birth, life, and death. The protons, the neutrons, the electrons, these are all the harmonic quantum physics of our existence. The electricity, the vibrations, the magnetism, all of these elements come together to produce the existence of this realm, this density, the existence of life, the materialization of light. This is replicated in so many ancient cultures that had advanced technology. They mapped the stars, and we reference those maps to this day, and still can't understand how they did it. And all of them went off of what's called the geocentric model up until just over 300 years ago, when two secret society, confirmed secret society scientists came out stating the heliocentric model, and then everyone went with that. Now, through this movement of the flat earth, individuals like Martin Kinney, who is a syncretic researcher, sorry about the picture. I took a still shot and it happened to not be the best face. Much respect, Martin, and also to the Norb's World, Nord Theory, really appreciate you, brother. He's given us praise on trying to help people understand the intricacy of this, and ultimately his work has been such a masterpiece of taking all these ancient systems and putting them into this digital animation that really helps you to conceptualize the concept of what I call realm theory, but he refers to as Norb theory, and this universal disclosure of what's coming December 21st. So, you know, it is a combination of Mother Nature meeting Father Time, 168,000 year journey into our existence, our time capsule, our home. And what that is a breakdown of how the non-physical energies spiraled into a singular point that created a semi-etheric physical realm, and that semi-etheric semi-physical realm um, manifested out a wave of physical realms, with which there are 4, and we happen to be in the 3rd of the 4th. So the first would be, and we're going to go into these, I don't want to go too deep in now, but more just give you perspective on this cosmic clock, which has been translated from ancient civilizations, and the patterning that was collected between ancient maps even, and a deeper exploration into how institutionalized science has been completely controlled, but not just controlled, designed to actually completely disillusion and disorient you off of even your own observational knowledge and wisdom in science, because observational science is powerful and relevant to theoretical science. And everything that we look at for the high priests of science that's looked at is ironclad. It's all theoretical, all of it. And this is part of the age that we're in, because we, if you're looking at my arrow here, we are about to enter the Bronze Age from the Iron Age, which is the Iron Age is the darker age. Bronze Age is the age of awakening, of disclosure, of the revealing of knowledge and wisdom. It's also a very confusing and disorienting age. So it is the correct time that there is about to be 40 days of rain after this election, and that rain will be a raining down of truth and revealing to the people. And it's going to be a lot for everybody to process. Where does the 10 days of darkness fit in? We'll see. It's really not about knowing an exact time, because that's part of the aspect of the shock of change, and part of that has been, you know, this pandemic has been a part of that process. So when we understand that we are in something bigger outside of this realm, this world, I want you to imagine that each one of these rings is a different world like ours. And these donut-like rings that have their own electromagnetic inner solar systems have their own suns and moons. And the suns and moons of the outer or inner realms, a farther distance from us, appear as the wandering stars we refer to as planets. And in less than 2 months, on December 21st, 2020, this will be the biggest event in our recent history, where all of the planets align to that center point of our cosmos, of our galaxy, and there will be an alignment. But if you understand through realms that each one of these is a realm, each one of these rings, the suns will line up on one side, the moons on another. This is something greater in terms of a reset, when you really understand, because it's not like some suns are on one side and some moon. They're polarizing out the sun and the lunar aspects of each realm and lining up. And every so often, when you have one of these cardinal shifts, which is the first 6,000 years in this 24,000 year cosmic day, sometimes when there's a quarter shift like this, it's called the cardinal shift, because the different realms or worlds are actually all going through changes of ages, of seasons, so to speak. So there is a greater electromagnetic alignment, impact, synchronicity, syncretic process that takes place. And this hasn't happened. I want you to think about this for over a 1,000 generations of our genetics, and won't happen again for another 1,000+ generations, depending on how long our lifespan goes to live from here. So it should continually expand as a mutating species, an evolving species, which we are. And I believe that this event is part of our longer timeline of evolutionary mutation and evolution and spiritual awakening. We were supposed to be preparing for thousands of generations, knowing this event would come, practicing these divine sciences, waking our nervous systems, our consciousness to be in a higher state. And if we hadn't had the control system put in place to not only warp and retard our operations of our brain to the left, dumb us down, toxify us with poisons, herbicides that affect our gender and our genetic infrastructure, and warp our populace, and all of the darker agendas put in place, our species would be in a very different place for what's coming. And that was done specifically on purpose, because these beings are actually from one of the other rings. And when they were about to go in their ring to a higher realm, vibrationally moving into a higher age, that was antagonistic energetically for them, because they chose to not walk the path of awakening and going higher, but to go against life, which has condemned them from going higher. And so they jumped realms, rings, to ours as we entered the dark ages, and they have altered and been messing with our process to naturally welcome in this shift in our age, so to speak, and they've been trying to compromise it in every way possible. So, in order to really understand that this is the ultimate goal, activating this inner divinity in Christ consciousness, to activate the ability to transcend truly dying and live as long as one needs to awaken, we must obviously dive deep into understanding both the physiological applicable processes and deeper processes of what it is that we are in terms of realms. So this is an initial shot of this structured concept that is really depicted. Again, this isn't a new thing. It's not made up. It was correlated from and created around ancient cosmic clocks and maps from advanced civilizations we're still figuring out and understanding and discovering new technology they had around. And I want to plant a little seed for everybody. Check out star forts. Put in star forts in YouTube. Take a look at these strange bases, structures, all in the same star shape all over the planet. I actually believe that they are Tesla towers from the ancient civilization that was here before. They were some form of a Tesla tower system around the entire realm that would conduct magnetism and power things. So next slide here is going to have some names to define these for us. Okay, so we have the first realm created that actually started in here in the center point, when the first manifestation from the semi-etheric realm, the Polarian realm that you see right in the center point, this is that semi-etheric plane where manifestations started to come in the physical realm, and everything spiraled down into a concentrated electromagnetic polar access point that manifested the first this semi-etheric physical realm over 24,000 years. As it completed, it pushed out the next realm, which actually is down here, the first realm created, the Hyperborean realm. And with the Hyperborean realm, it came with an androgynous satellite. For the first 24,000 years, every realm has an androgynous satellite that rotates around. And when it completes its 24,000 year cycle, it splits into a sun and a moon, and it begins its next round, if you will, of expansion and growth. So after the Hyperborean was up here expanding out, then came the Lemurian, which pushed out from that center point. Again, a realm of tectonic plates pushing outward. It has a northern and southern boundary. The southern boundary the northern boundary now for Hyperborea would be Lemuria, this new realm separated by an electron field. You can see the toroidal electron field, or Van Allen belt as we know it. So then you can see the southern border of the Hyperborean realm goes out and down, because see how this is above? As all the electrons, protons, and neutrons separated, it produced this manifestation here and below, because everything is a dualistic reflection as it went into physical realm structure. Okay, so then from the Lemurian realm, the northern border or boundary or North Pole would be the boundary to the next realm that pushed out from this Polarian semi-etheric kind of creation platform, if you will. And that, remember, these are like ripples of water. Look at the patterning of how water ripples. Look at the patterning of wave structure, because water is electrons. Electrons move in a wave-like form. All of this manifested from a non-physical, and electrons actually move very much like water. So it spiraled to this point. So then you had the Atlantean realm push out. And from the Atlantean realm's now southern border, that crossing over goes to the northern border of the Lemurian realm. And of course, then you have the northern border of the Atlantean realm, which eventually goes to the newest of realms that just came out from the Polarian realm. We are in the first 6,000 years of its first cosmic day, and that is the Aryan realm. Now, each of these realms have root races that are connected to them. Hyperborean would be the African or Black genetics, the oldest genetic race we know of in our realm. The next one would be Lemurian, would be the Asian genetics, okay, in all branches of, including their cultures, the sciences, the spiritual technologies. The next one is the Atlantean realm, which is the Indo-Asian or Hindu, which is the current realm we are in with our sun and moon that we have, Artemis and Apollo. And so then you have all of their cultural elements and spiritual sciences, technology. So then you have the Aryan realm, which is the Caucasian or the white people, the youngest of the genetic races. Now, we are currently in the Atlantean realm. How are there all the genetics in between of all of the root races in this realm? Guess what? They're most likely in all of the realms, because over the cosmic ages, these electron fields would go down, and in the electron fields going down, meaning that they would drop during cardinal shifts or planetary alignments, there would be an opening between the realms, and there was a migration between root races and between the realms. And now we are here in the Atlantean realm, post the 24,000 year completion of the cosmic day that separated our sun and moon. The races that ended up here went from in between the realms and ended up here when they regrouped after the great changes that took place that are recorded throughout history. With antediluvian means pre-flood civilizations. There's a record of a great flood and great pole shift. There's a record of the pole shift that happened, where the magnetic the lava flow changed directions. So we have records of all of these elements. We just haven't put them into a collective understanding, because we've been disoriented on the actual living organism that we're even trying to understand, and how it works and how it's structured. So in this Atlantean realm, that's why the yogic sciences, because we're in this realm, that's the indigenous root spiritual science of this realm, that's why they're so powerful. Now, it's not that Qigong and all these other, they're all magical. In fact, I believe that all the ancient sciences were designed to cycle and be carried, be passed along through the realms, so that eventually they could be collectively utilized by the species, the mixed species of all the humanoid races in between realms, as these cosmic shifts, these cosmic events happened. And again, this cosmic event is about recalibrating the sound, the oscillation, the frequency of all the realms. If they get imbalanced, there's a giant energy release. All of the electron fields between the realms go down, and the energy sweeps across all the realms that are contained in a giant cosmic egg, if you will. And these frequencies are to cleanse, clear, and help evolve, so to speak, the races in their evolutionary process. But part of that is their involvement, their awareness, and their synchronicity to the processes at hand as all of their suns and moons line up, which are again electromagnetic orbs that are connected to you. And these electromagnetic orbs that are connected to you, they have an effect on your body and how it oscillates and how you're feeling and how and again, if you're more in your left brain and mental and logical and not in your heart, and believe me, I'm a neuromuscular specialist who's treated thousands of patients over 20 years, and I have seen the dark depths of how deeply someone can be disconnected from their heart and deeply entrenched in their psychosis of their mind. It is sad and scary to see, and it has been powerfully revealing and humbling to see how much I've even had my own intellectual mental infection of the left brain. Even though I was naturally more right and receptive, I was conditioned and programmed, obligated to be more in the left brain because our society has been structured in the left and in the strategic and the active. And we're moving into a time of receptivity and passivity. And that is my time. That's the time I'm good at. But I'm noticing a weathering of my own experience because the mental mind the left brain has also been deeply patterned into me, like each one of us. And it is our opportunity to get out of that left and cast thy net to the right. So the Aryan race, the youngest realm, the white people realm, they are in their realm. They're in a golden age right now, and they are growing, developing, cultivating. The descendants that have made it to this realm, who have been in a great forgetting, we don't really have, you'll notice, we're a younger people here. There is no spiritual sciences for the Caucasian race as a culture. Besides the adaptation of Christianity, which wasn't really like a Caucasian spiritual religion initially, but it became so through the ages, initially with, unfortunately, a very distorted and warped construct in which you are told that this is the only Son of God, and you're basically, you need to live like this embodied being, but he's the only Son of God, so he's kind of got special privileges with our divine parent, but somehow you're supposed to reach this, even though it doesn't seem like a fair playing field, because we're all born of sin, as you're bombarded and told. Not really relayed that actually the Bible is an allegorical diagram for what Jesus was teaching and talks about throughout the Bible, which is that you all have the ability to become Christed and take yourself through the sacred anointing process. So we have our Atlantean realm. You can see our sun and our moon. And this is our realm structure. You can see the one that is 2 rings outside of us. So the Hyperborean, the first initial one. Okay. And you got Saturn and Jupiter are its suns and moons. Okay. The Lemurian, which is the one just outside of our southern boundary. All right. Which has got Mars and Venus as its sun and moon. And really, they're separated between these electron fields and these kind of walls of ice, if you will. And I implore you to look at Operation Fishbowl and Operation High Jump. These are military operations. The documents are available. You can see how they actually went up and they explored into this extraterrestrial terrain. And then they blocked everybody, and every country made a treaty to not fly or travel to these areas, and they began controlling our borders to our outer space. Now, interestingly enough, the Lemurian realm is about to go through a pretty gnarly apocalypse where they're falling from the golden age to the iron age. And I want you to think in terms of the ages and how they affect each species in our evolution. They're like seasons, and we go through them. And just like our seasons that we go through, we have ages we go through. And at least through the yugas, which also depict this, remember, you're going to see patterns across every culture. You have 3,000-year transitional ages, 3 of them. So 3,000-year transitional ages that result in 9, the number of completion, and then you have 15,000 years of a golden age, which is magical because just like the seasons, the sun is out a majority of the seasons, and so the Lemurian age is about to go into a dark age. And interesting how Mars is the sun of Lemuria, but what they've told us is they have all this focus on Mars and colonizing Mars, or maybe it's going to our southern border when the electron fields are thin and traveling to this outer realm as it's going into a dark age, carrying the knowledge and wisdom of this realm process. And then the civilization that gets rocked by that apocalypse, they move in as kind of foreign beings in to help them with more knowledge as these part of this process of apocalypse. A lot of times can be a great forgetting. And then they come in and they repeat the cycle they just did with us over the last 6,000 years. That's kind of the running theory and vision of understanding what the fascination is with Mars and with sending probes out. And they're also testing this electron field that's about to go down. And that electron field you can see the walls of here, so to speak. And again, all depicted in ancient text, this sacred firmament, the sacred firmament separating the realms. Here are those and I'm going to pause here for the cosmic stuff. And I'll go into that in the remainder of the show. I'm actually going to transition now to the concept of breath of fire and the aspect of activating the Kundalini, and how the breath of fire is a pivotal process in stimulating and conditioning the body to go through this sacred anointing process that we've depicted here in this chart. I'm actually gonna jump over, let's see, I'll bring this one up, which is also kind of the process of this sacred anointing, but how important the breath is. The breath is key. Your lungs produce the most DMT in the body just from conscious breathing, okay? You can activate a profound euphoric and psychotropic experience that is completely natural from your own pharmacy. So in that regard, I'm going to go into the basic breakdown of breath of fire, the science behind breath of fire, the benefits of breath of fire. And I left this visual up just for you can see that fire in the lungs, kind of, that you're seeing the ignition of what produces that dimethyltryptamine. So when you're doing breath of pranayama or pranayama, excuse me, you want to visualize the prana is light energy entering you as you inhale, feeling it renew your body, your mind, your spirit. And as you exhale, you want to visualize the apana leaving you. It's the energy that doesn't serve you anymore. It's no longer needed. It's the release of emotion and experience that is let out through the release of the prana. Now, breath of fire is used consistently through Kundalini Yoga, okay, or pranayama. And it is a forced inhale, exhale. There we go. It's a forced inhale, exhale. I just want to bring myself up to visual. There we go. Okay. So it is a forced inhale, exhale through the nasal passage. And part of the mastery with any martial arts or any spiritual sciences is the conditioning process that you choose to go through before you practice that technique. So an example would be strengthening the inner muscles along the nasal passage is pivotal to having a powerful ability to manipulate chi or prana through the breath. So I want you to, for those on the radio, I want you to hear the force in my nasal passage. And for those watching, you can see and also hear the power of the force that I can conjure through the strength conditioning of my nasal passage. That's pretty forceful, right? So that has taken years of conditioning to get it that strong. And once I've built that core strengthening around both my diaphragm and my nasal passage, that strength maintains. It actually stays. and it progressively builds and refines and evolves and becomes more masterful. So there are different variances of pranayama, and unfortunately with the westernization of yoga in general, a lot that also kind of westernization equals dilution. The sciences got diluted on some level. And when I say that, there was a couple reasons. One, the yogis didn't trust what the Westerners would do with these very powerful sciences that awaken power, because someone could be corrupt and learn these sciences and use that power negatively. Remember, it's like the force; it can be dark or light. And also, there was also an aspect of just protecting the integrity of the systems and passing it on to those that were truly ready. And of course, with the westernization of yoga, with a very a Caucasian race that is new, right, in their first 6,000 year process, the first quarter of their cosmic day, in their root race, in their realm, not this one, the ones that made it here, don't have any deep spiritual sciences imprinted to their genetics, because they're a newer race and they're in the process right now of cultivating that. That's what happens over that 24,000 year first cosmic day of a civilization's existence. That's how these yogic sciences came about and manifested. Over the first cosmic day, if you will. And so I'm going to give you a few variances. You have very elongated breaths that are more drawn out. You can go more controlled and concise. You can go really short and shallow and fast. And you can play within some variance. Now, you also can do a deeper guttural breathing, where it's more of a bellowing, where you're kind of scraping the lungs, if you will, diving to the core of the diaphragm, expelling from the navel point, being pulled in, okay? And it sounds like this. Now I'm really pushing, and I'm just clearing actually a lot of detox recently from my lungs. So you can actually, it's good. You can really hear how I'm scraping out, and it's wanting to cause me to push and expel that out. You can actually hear I'm forcing it out actually of the lungs. It's already moving as I'm doing this. So excuse me. And it forces, again, a scraping and an expulsion of any nanodust or free radicals, gunk that collects in the air, you name it. Radiation from the 117 billion tons of radioactive plutonium dumped in the atmosphere since 1938 till 1963, when it was made illegal. That's all floating around, and it collects in the lung tissue. And so expelling and cleansing the lungs daily is really important. So when I'm doing that expulsion, the inhale is relaxed. So I'm just focusing on the forced exhale. You can hear the inhale just kind of, anytime you contract, you naturally expand again. Okay. So these are and so when I'm doing any Kriya, where I'm doing this breath work, I usually start with the deeper bellowing breath, and I'll do that for 30 seconds to a minute. And you could do it just sitting in a chair like this. And then I'll transition to forced inhale, exhale. And then I'll increase in speed and repetition over the next, let's say, minute and a half that I'll do this forced inhale, exhale. Okay. And when I'm going to finish this breath technique in any position, we're just practicing and going through the breath just in a normal sitting position, which is an easy one you can do. You can do this just when you're you get in your car before you drive somewhere. Do this. It grounds you in. Or when you get home, just to ground in from the road. Or just sitting in front of your bed before you go to sleep. This will ground you into a really beautiful and deep meditation. Now, here's the part where we're going to activate that dimethyltryptamine, the DMT, and really give ourselves this activation and release. So we're going to blow all the air out after we've done this breath technique. We're going to blow all the air out, and we're going to anchor it from the stomach, coming all the way in. Okay? And as we anchor the breath, blowing everything out, collapsing. I know, funky pants. They're great. They're actually silk too, and I found them for $3 at a vintage store. They were some little old ladies, and now I'm rocking them. So as you're breathless, fully pulled in, collapsed all the way in, then you're gonna take a deep breath. Oh, I'm sorry. As you're collapsed, you're gonna sit up breathless, sitting up for as long as you can. Okay. Let's say try to do at least 30 seconds, 45 seconds breathless. Now, what does this do? This kicks in a state of hypoxia where the body actually thinks it's dying. The oxygen's cut off. Okay. It's now going to direct all the oxygenated blood you just built up with that breath technique to the areas that are damaged the most. Okay. It's going to direct that energy and nourish those areas. Then from that breathless state, we're going to take a deep breath in, pulling like we're holding from releasing on our pelvic floor, like we're holding from having to pee. We're going to draw from the root as we take this inhale, and I'm going to show you the body sequence as I go. You'll see it start from the root and transfer to the stomach. So you can even see how the stomach pulls in. It's pulling in. I'm pulling it up to the chest, and I'm pulling the chest back. As I pull the chest back, tucking the chin, the tongue is pressed to the roof of the mouth. The eyes are rolled to the third eye. This is going to hit the pineal and pituitary, but it's going to hit the pineal from two different directions of neural pathways, because your pineal gland actually develops in the roof of your mouth when you're a fetus, when you're in your mother. And then eventually, as the brain develops, it ascends. It moves up from the roof up to the center of the brain. And there are neural pathways that go. So when you press your tongue to the roof of your mouth, you can actually just stimulate the pineal gland and the dimethyltryptamine naturally just pressing in that point. And it's good to train yourself. If you're stressed, don't grit down with your teeth. Press your tongue to the roof of the mouth. It's a neat way to flex in a productive way that's not damaging the teeth, and flexing and stressing this muscle, which, by the way, the jaw is the punching bag of the mind. Everybody comes out of the birth canal grinding down, and it becomes your go-to for stress. And eventually, like I said, punching bag of the mind, it collects all the trauma, including the birth trauma that's there, and nobody ever gets that released. And so we tend to flex even when we're nervous or tense. We'll grit that. Try pressing the tongue to the roof of the mouth. It's a nice alternative. Little tip. So as we're taking that deep breath, holding and squeezing, we're going to sip a little more through the mouth. That was after we take a deep breath through the nose. We're going to hold and squeeze, tucking the chin, and we're going to imagine. This is where you have to incorporate a psychic exercise, which is how these spiritual sciences were done. Because remember, the parasympathetic nervous system is going to do all of these sacred secretions on its own. You need to just initiate the physical electromagnetic holds in sequence, which do take practice and connecting some unification of your body. And as those energies are brought up and synced and activated, this visualization of seeing a column of light and the energies coming out the top and then encasing back through the root like a toroidal field. You're literally creating the pattern of the electromagnetic toroidal field of the realm that we're in. You're directing the energies to contain in your field. If you don't do this, and this is again an example of the dilution of the westernization of yoga and things that weren't taught that needed to be to all yogis, or it affects your practice and you don't realize it, is if you don't contain the energy, it will just, you'll build it to the top, you'll feel charged up from your practice, and it'll dissipate over the day and you'll feel exhausted because you didn't direct energy. Because we don't even know, again, bringing us back to our ignorance, we don't even know that we can direct energy. We don't even know that we can direct intention. We don't know that we can state with our will energetically to close our energy field, and nothing can mess with us. So if we don't do that, energetically, our field is open and things can mess with us. We don't understand what it is to navigate through the non-physical realm yet. And we need to start learning, because we are moving into a higher density where we will be interfacing with higher dimensional existence and beings. And we're kind of the baby, we're the infant in the new playground. And it's going to be a new world, a brave new world, if you will. So bringing that breath up, holding and squeezing, and as you're pressurizing that oxygen, it's like pressurizing oxygen right into your bloodstream. It floods that oxygenated blood to the brain. That starts waking up the dormant centers, and it starts activating both hemispheres, stimulating the right brain to start opening up. It's charging up the electromagnetic charge, the hertz level of all the cells, and you're practicing a rhythm to start the activation of this glandular manipulated sacred anointing process that is deeply imprinted in your hard drive for you to be able to do, to regenerate and live longer and not age. Have a longer experience here. This sacred anointing process has to be practiced. You can't just get your body to do it. You have to start building muscle memory around it. But it's really just the fire of the first introduction and pushing through, and then you're on your way. The body remembers it. It's not new what you're learning. This is all old. This is all exactly what it is. It is your divine birthright to activate to a potential of truly being a creator God. Or you can live in the human experience side. But we've been in that ignorance for a long time. We've been trapped in the samsara wheel of a shorter lifespan where we aren't allowed to die properly in something called bardo, where the soul has to spiral up to the crown and it accumulates all of its data before it transitions, and then you get to keep the memories of your experiences. If the body is moved after death, before 3 days of this integration, it breaks the connection and the soul forgets everything and it doesn't bring it back in reincarnating. How about that? So on top of the shorter lifespan samsara wheel, you now also have a transition process that's not honoring the transference of data from the shorter lifetime. So imagine, just let's go to an idealistic place of a society where we do all these practices, we're trained them from intergenerationally, from being children. We love them. We're fascinated with them. We thrive through them, and they are a part of our culture. And people get together and do the practices and go into blissful states instead of sitting around and drinking a bunch of alcohol or smoking a bunch of cannabis. It's ingrained in our culture that this is actually way more enjoyable and way more magical. And on top of it, we're living longer lifespans, 200, 300, 500, 600 years. But when we do pass, then we have a sacred honoring of the transition so that the soul retains all that. So if they do reincarnate again, because they haven't achieved these higher states of enlightenment, they will retain a lot of that information and knowledge, and they will come in and naturally be able to accelerate from that point rather than going into the forgetting and starting again. We have been engaged into and entrapped into this process, this more infantile, adolescent hamster wheel of suffering. And it has kept our entire species, our entire realm of souls, of soul fractals in this realm, hindered in their acceleration to awaken and ascend to higher levels of existence. And they have dragged it out, and they have really utilized this iron age. But the transition is making the conditions here not easy for them. And this awakening and this great revealing, which is what apocalypse means, is going to be a big part of the annihilation of that. Because from what I understand in the research I've done and the intel I have, this is not new here. They've done this in multiple realms to multiple civilizations and species. including the sacrificing of their children and the drinking of the blood and the adrenochrome. All this has been an ancient thing. This has gone on for a long time, and it ends here and now. So in that regard, practice your breath, explore the breath work, explore the concept, explore the basics, the nuances of getting comfortable. And again, to get those nasal passage muscles really flexing, try to make the force out of your nostrils. Every time I do this, people always, they're always really soft with it. I'll try to scrunch your nose like you're sneezing. Recreate a sneeze. Really start putting more force and practicing what it is to exert more force into those muscles, and you start conditioning and strengthening. Okay. Last tip before we close it on the YouTube live, and I'm going to continue on in the broadcast, get a little deeper, go a little deeper. Salt circles. This is a big one. I wanted to do a live demo, and I'll probably shoot a video of how to make one, just a shorter video that I'll shoot and edit and make real clean. But I'm going to give you the information now because you could be utilizing this today to help yourself to shift any energies of negativity. And we're in the crux, friends. We are days away from the action movie sequences of the cosmic reality show, and we're coming into the final gauntlet up until this great cosmic event. This is the season finale of 2020, guys, and I want you to have as much information and knowledge, because one of the things that's going to be very reflective of 10 Days of Darkness and cutting, the power will still be on from what I understand, but all information, all telecommunication cut, is knowledge and wisdom is the most relevant and powerful when you don't know what's going on in great times of change, or you know what's going on in great times of change, because that can affect the decisions and the thoughts because of the fear, because our greatest fear, all of us, is the fear of the unknown, the fear of the unknown. And the unknown can be what's happening, the sky is falling, what's going on in this moment. I don't know. I haven't been tuned in and tapped in enough to, even if I didn't know when, I knew what would happen when it did. So even if you were a little bit of this and you think I'm completely crazy, you'll have a reference point to some knowing with what is coming that we are in the crux of. So the energies are going to be intense. And this is an ancient spiritual technique, spiritual science. The spiritual magic, the ancient magic that there is very simple a lot of times and very clean. So I'm going to give you the basic breakdown. Get yourself some of that Morton salt with a little metal thing that flips down. Okay. It's the best one because you can open that and you can draw a really clean salt circle. Okay, what are the requirements for an activated salt circle? You want to be facing north. And north is going to be your 12 o'clock point when you make your circle, okay? So when you make your circle, you're going to make sure you're directionally facing north. And from 12 o'clock, you're going to go clockwise, completing the circle. The salt has to be cleanly connected from where it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but it has to not have breaks in the thickness of the line, ideally. If it's a little thinner, that's okay, as long as it's connected. Think energetically. If there's a break, it breaks the energy for being contained. You start at 12 o'clock, you go in a clockwise circle around, completing at 12, facing north. Okay, that's just a basic clearing salt circle. Now there are also salt circles that are for channeling information through, for integrating light or energy into the planet, or the one who stands inside of it. So good question. And I just got a question from one of the producers. How big of a salt circle? That's up to you. I would recommend at least comfortably to stand in it, at least, 2 feet in diameter, okay, or 2 foot radius, at least maybe 3. And when you complete this circle, I want you to stand inside of it and see what happens for you. I'm amazed how many patients I'll bring in, and they'll have some deep traumatizing releases, and then I'll have them stand in the salt circle, and it's unbelievable what it does. What's happening? Well, salt, sodium, and any of the salts are sacred. They're magical. Okay, Ormus is the supposed sacred salts of the Dead Sea. But the bottom line is they can be monatomic, they can be activated, but salts are periodical. They're ancient, they're elemental. Okay. They're a base principle of alchemy. And I am a deep advocate and best friend to sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, another form of a salt. Okay. But for salt circles, you don't want baking soda. You want actual just iodized salt. Energetically, we've found through experience, it works the best. So I did a lot of work with really powerful psychics. We can go into that at some point. I learned a lot of this from them and going on these crazy missions to remove demons from people, interdimensionally activated water that we had to anchor in the continent of England or in the country of England, and going to Stonehenge and opening portals and stuff. So this is all a pre-Kauai life for me, pre-family, pre-kids, was I doing these missions with these powerful beings. And this is where I learned a lot of this stuff. And again, here's the thing. The results will show you with anything, okay? The results will show you. All right. So I challenge you to try this and see what you feel. Starting north, 12 o'clock, complete that full circle, stand inside of it. What most people feel is they just get lighter. They feel this kind of zone out and this illuminated kind of lightened feeling about them. And people that are extremely angry, or if you're really frustrated. I used to, for our Living Foods Cafe, if I had an employee that was having a hard time or getting frustrated in the kitchen, we had a salt circle outside in the back for where our employees were. And I would just have the employees just go stand in the salt circle for a minute, just ground out. So salt circles, magical tool, super simple. You can set one up in a parking lot if you needed to. I actually, excuse me. I actually have I've had an idea of creating a really beautiful sectional piece that plugs in, and it has a rut in it. Pretty simple design. And it's basically a portable salt circle that you could lay down. You can pour it in the rut of the track that fits together for whatever size you need. And and really you can actually dump and save your salt. So if you don't do that, go somewhere. Obviously you don't want to put it on grass because it's going to destroy the grass. Pavement's really good. I put it on a wood floor a lot of times if you're in a drier area. And I'll leave one up usually. I just leave it up like a healing device. But try it out. It's magical. These are basic, simple, powerful, ancient spiritual tools that we just haven't gotten a lot of debriefing on. When I heard about it, I was like, wow, so simple. Now, another one for integrating or activating or bringing information or channeling energy in is starting north. You're going to do your inside circle clockwise, the outside circle counterclockwise. So you have two spiraling energies going the opposite directions, and you stand inside of it. That's a more intensified clearing circle. And if you wanted to bring information in inside that double, you would start with a right side up triangle and then an upside down triangle, making a star tetrahedron. Okay. And that star tetrahedron, or what has been, unfortunately stolen and referenced as the Star of David, star tetrahedron is the more ancient name. That channels information through. And I actually had a very interesting journey with having to do that for the first 4 days of every month for an entire year with this powerful being. Fascinating. And then all these channels would come through her for the 15 minutes we had to stand in it. And we had to face the different directions each of the 4 days. So every day we'd be standing in a different direction, facing that direction, and a channel would come through. The next day we'd have to make another salt circle wherever we were. If we're on a mission, we'd have to go out and do it. And then I would stand in the circle with her and I would record the channels, which I have hundreds of them recorded. I've been actually thinking about, at least scripting them, but, maybe trying to get some of the audio recordings and playing them. Really powerful. Again, results. Look at the pranayama. I just did some deep scraping. I haven't done mine yet today because I've been doing some detoxing and releasing of the lungs. But just a little bit of that we demonstrated. It's my lungs are in process now. There's an internal process happening where it's continuing to expel, and we didn't even fully do the technique. So with that, I'm going to end the YouTube live. I'm going to keep going on People for People Radio, and I will record the rest of the broadcast and put it back onto YouTube with some more information and intel or beautiful slides and graphics that we'll edit together. So with that, thank you all on YouTube live so much for joining us. I'm going to cease that again. Appreciate you all so much. and look forward to seeing you next week. Be safe, be grounded, be centered. Don't react, trust. There is an invisible hand orchestrating all things, and we will all be tested in our stuff